Hi writers, welcome back for another revision mini lesson. This one is all about transition words. Transition words is something you might have heard of before, and I'm sure you use some of them in your writing. Transition words are like a word or phrase that transition one part of your writing to the next. We use these in every kind of writing. Something that you've probably heard before is, first, next, then, finally. Those are transition words. It kind of tells you the order of the story or the order of the piece of writing, and it kind of moves the text from one part to the next. In informational writing, there are some specific transitional words and phrases that we see a lot. So today we're going to take a look at a mentor text, Pawns, and I'm going to show you some transition words in there. I'm also going to show you a list of transition words that you could use in your own writing and kind of outline the expectation for using transition words in third grade. So first, let's look at Pawns. So I've identified a few places where we see some transition words. On this page, this is in a section called A Quiet Moment. It's right in the beginning. It's telling kind of the history of ponds. It told about how in the past, people used to live near ponds and they used ponds for water. Okay, so then here, today, many people have other ways to get water. That word today is a transition word. It's kind of moving this part to the next. It's saying, here I'm talking about the past. Now I'm going to talk about the present. So today signals us in our brains to know, okay, we're not talking about the past anymore. Now we've transitioned to talking about the present. It's a signal word. Another place we see this is in this section. We see it a lot with life cycles, because a life cycle has a beginning and a middle and an end, and then it starts over. So we see some of these really important transitional words. Here, it's describing the life cycle. So it starts with, there's a lot of activity in the pond during the spring and summer, insects buzz, okay? Then, in the winter, oh, here's another transition. This phrase is telling us we're moving now from the spring and summer into the winter, okay? Then there's another phrase here, when the weather warms up, the pond will thaw. So now it's telling us, oh, transition again, we're moving into the spring again. So we see in a cycle transition words a lot because it moves time from one time to the next. So, Pawns is written by Yvonne Franklin, and she's not a third grader. And you might be asking yourself, wait, are my transitional words and phrases supposed to sound like that? Because she's an adult and a published author. Well, that's something to strive for. But let me tell you the expectations for transitional words and phrases in third grade. Ta-da! Okay, so when we think about transitions in third grade, you can see this little image here in this speech bubble. We're identifying time, right? So we might say before, after, then, later. We might say words like however and but. So the description here is, I used words to show sequence, such as before, after, then, and later. I also used words to show what didn't fit, such as however and but. Okay? So in third grade, it's really about time, right? It's talking about using words like before or after, or then, later, Also, if things don't fit together, you might see the word like however or but, right, if things are different. So I want to share one other little helpful tool that you might think about that has lots of other transition words that you could think about including. Let's put that one over here. So on this infographic, we see 4 sections of transition words. So you can see first are things that you might put in the beginning of your text, right? So in the morning, or one reason, or one example, blah, blah, or you might say, to begin with, blah, 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 right? Then as you get a little bit farther along in your book or even in a section, you might say after a while, or also, or another reason, or another example. Okay, you can see the rest. Then in the purple rectangle where it says then, we see a lot more transition words that can be used like farther along in a section or in a book. And then at the end of a book, you might see some of these words in the red, or you might use some of these words in the red rectangle, like at last, or as one can see, or finally, or in conclusion. You might see that in your conclusion. In the end, or so you can see, you might say to summarize, right? So these words are really helpful in identifying what part of the text you're in. And it's just so helpful to the reader to help keep all of the facts you're giving them. It helps to keep it organized in their reading brain. So what does this mean for you in your revision stage of writing? Well, go back to your draft. Notice, have you been using transition words like first, next, last, before, after, however, but? If you have, you can go ahead and just circle them and say like, oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. You might just be noticing that this is something you're already doing. However, transition word, if you have noticed that you're not doing it, read the draft and try to figure out how can I fit in some of these transition words. Do I want to start my paper with to begin with? Or in my second subtopic, do I want to add in like one example of this is blah, 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 blah. Another example is blah, 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 right? Those are transition words. So go back to your draft, read through it, notice, have you been using transition words? And if not, figure out where you can add them in. As always, have an amazing day in your independent writing, and I will talk to you soon.